Have you ever wondered what the most effective communication medium is? With so many options available to us, it can be quite overwhelming to choose the best way to communicate with others. According to a study by McKinsey Global Institute, email is still by far the most effective medium for communication in the workplace. And why is that, you might ask? Email allows us to convey detailed information and documentation, and it can also be easily forwarded and archived. Plus, we can also access our email from anywhere, which is especially important in today's remote work environment. But that's not to say that other communication don't have their place. For example, face-to-face communication is great for building relationship and establishing trust. However, phone calls can also be more efficient than email when trying to resolve a complex issue in real time. And when it comes to written communication, such as emails or other electronic messages, it's really important to pay attention to the format. Headings should be short, meaningful, and consistent in style. And all headings should be parallel in grammatical structure. List is another important formatting element in e-communication. Bullets or number can be used, and one rule of thumb to remember is that lists with more than 5 items, it's better to use numbers. The items itself can be punctuated in various ways depending on the logic of the content, but then again, consistency is important. For example, let's take a look at a list that treats item as a separate unit. For example, 1 introduction, 2 needs and benefit, and 3 costs. And now we can also take a look of an example of a list that treats item as a grammatical unit. 1, an introduction, 2, a section on needs and benefit, and 3, a section on costs. As you can see, there's different ways to format lists, and the best option depends on the specific content and context. Finally, it's worth noting that e-communication can be particularly challenging as it can lack some of the non-verbal cues that we rely on in face-to-face communication. This means that we need to be extra careful about the language and tone we use in our messages. We want to avoid some sense of ambiguity and make sure that our messages are clear and professional. To summarize, effective e-communication requires careful consideration of both the medium and formatting of the messages. By choosing the right medium, formatting of our messages for clarity and readability, and also paying close attention to the language and tone in which we speak, we can communicate effectively and build strong professional relationships. And that's all from me, and next we will discuss the usage of social media.
So I'm going to talk about creating and using social media effectively. Social media has changed the way we communicate across all industries and professions, for example, with LinkedIn or even blogs. So here's how to create and maintain a professional blog. With these 5 steps, you should be able to do it. Firstly, define your purpose before you begin. You have to ask yourself the right questions. For example, what kind of audience do you want to attract? What are the goals? And what are the other bloggers writing on about our topic? Second, be involved in the conversation. You have to interact with your readers by answering their questions and amusing your audience with different contents. Thirdly is give credit. So you have to make sure to give credit and link to other bloggers, for example, if you use their ideas to keep up a strong reputation. Fourth, you have to make it different. So it has to be a unique blog with personal and professional ideas, but different to the others. And fifth, keep writing. With microblogs such as Twitter, it's also a similar concept. You can also set check-in times and automate your tweets. You also have to follow the right people in your niche and have a sense of humor, as with a wide audience, there can be sarcastic or irrelevant comments. Furthermore, social media is also used for professional reasons. Communication has to be adapted to these professional environments, such as in emails or on LinkedIn. As you know, LinkedIn is a platform where you can highlight your education and work experience. You can also connect with others across industries and professions, promote your ideas, get recommendations, and overall build a powerful network with other professionals. Using the right communication in emails is also important, so there are 10 guidelines for effective email. Remember, you have to be cautious with everything you communicate on social media, emails or text messages, and other electronic communications in a workspace, as they are all traceable and can be used in lawsuits, including hirings, promotions, firings, and other human resources disputes. Now my colleagues will talk about leadership presentations in person and online.
Thank you, Sandhya and Joan. Now I'm going to present about making a leadership presentation both in person and online. In this chapter, we will witness the 3 steps of making a leadership presentation and delivering it. So, without further ado, let's jump into the first step of making a leadership presentation, which is planning. Planning is divided into 3 sub-steps. The first one is determining strategy. In this step, we'll examine the context, the audience, the timing, the purpose, and the feedback for the presentation. We start with the first one, context. Examining the context means being aware of what is going on around the organization, in the local region, in our market or industry, and even in the world, so the audience can relate to and understand our presentation purpose. Next, we must also establish a clear purpose for our presentation in order to analyze the audience better and set realistic expectations for them. As I mentioned, analyzing the audience is most important because the more we know about them, the better we are able to present to them. Next, the time of the presentation is also an indispensable part of planning the presentation. We must consider the general state of mind at different time of day. Finally, we must think about ways to obtain feedback from our audience in order to evaluate their understanding and our communication. The second step of planning is selecting the medium and delivering method. Whether it is a roundtable meeting, a webinar, a telephone meeting, we must consider the advantages and disadvantages to better accommodate our strategy from the first step. Let's have a look at different types of methods. First, in-person or online roundtable presentations. We usually select the roundtable presentation to achieve one of the following: encourage an informal interactive discussion, receive input from audience members, build consensus or gain agreement on conclusions or recommendations, check the accuracy of facts or identify sources of missing data, uncover and resolve major issues, and finally, present a lot of information in a short amount of time. Next, stand-up extemporaneous presentation in person or online. Extemporaneous presentation is prepared presentation that does not include any material reading or speaking during the presentation. It relies on the understanding of material presented. Next is impromptu presentation. This is similar to the last presentation type. The difference is that the impromptu is done without any prior notice, so it happens immediately when acquired. Finally, webcasts and webinars. There are several options for webcasts and webinars, such as an audio, visual, document sharing, chatting, polling, recording, and annotating. The final step of planning is creating a logical and effective presentation structure. We can manage this by creating an outline that helps us to have a general idea about the audience's interest, our purpose, the demand for the subject matter, and the media. That's it from me for now, guys. Now Hasna will present to you about preparing the presentation.
Thank you, Frank, Sandhya, and Joan. Next, I'm going to explain about preparing presentation. First of all, preparing a presentation is essential. Why? Because we will be completely confident and less nervous if we prepare and plan properly. Our audience will sense our assurance and our audience will respond positively to our message. We can begin creating important components that consist of the introduction, conclusion, and body of our presentation once we have an overall plan for the flow of our presentation. So, the first one is introduction. We should introduce our overall message as well as each of our supporting topics. Remembering the CPF abbreviation is useful for the beginning of presentation. C, which is context. What is the motivation for the presentation? What influenced it? P, which is purpose. Why am I giving this presentation? What is my reason? And the last one is F, which is foreshadowing. What will happen in this presentation and in what order? What should the audience expect to hear as they listen? The second one is body or the content in the middle. It is usually best to organize the presentation directly, giving the conclusions and recommendations first, with the facts to support or illustrate it, woven through the body of the presentation. And the last one is conclusions. The conclusion of a professional presentation will usually include a summary of what we have said, going over the main points, and reinforcing them. The summary statement is critical in bringing the audience back to us. It allows us to address any concerns raised by the questions and ensures that the audience lives with our message at the forefront of their mind. The keys to delivering the presentation successfully to audience are: the first one is testing the flow and logic. We should test the flow by telling the story of our presentation aloud to ourselves and to someone else. Can we tell the story in a couple of minutes? What are the main message? Do they flow logically from one to the other? The second one is editing and proofreading. We cannot go back and correct the slides or retract any errors in what we have said once the presentation has begun. If we are using visual aids, we will need to carefully edit and proofread them. The third one is practicing to facilitate effective delivery. That consists of giving the presentation out loud. Practice is the only way to establish smooth transitions from speaker to speaker, to ensure all sections are complete and coherent, and to judge the timing accurately. Checking the room and setup. We should test the environment ahead of time with a partner to ensure that the camera, microphone, desktop projection, etc. Timing. To ensure the timing is right, we will want to practice our presentation with a timer and keep the presentation a little under the required time limit. So that's all from me for now, thank you. Next, about presenting a presentation would be explained by Ridho.
Yes, that is true. Thank you, Hasna and Frank. And moving on, hi guys, welcome. My name is Ridho Imran and you can call me Ridho. And moving on to how to present effectively with a greater confidence. Presenting would be so much better when all the target of people are hearing you, paying you a lot of attention, and giving you much appreciation. It is always the feeling of being a star when you're presenting in front of a lot of people. Presenting effectively with greater confidence have so much strategies for delivering presentation with confidence and impact. It suggests that effective presentation requires careful planning and preparation, including setting clear objectives, knowing your audience, and practicing your delivery. And that has been mentioned by Hasna, and it's very important to create a clear and engaging message that connects with the audience. Most people effectively tend to get and receive the message that you want them to listen with the great message, clear and engaging message. And here, building confidence is also great to help you present effectively. While present, it recommends us using techniques such as visualization, positive self-talk, I'm great, I'm smart, telling out we are very great, and breathing exercises. This so much techniques can help to calm nerves and increase confidence while presenting. And there are tons of other important things of non-verbal communication in presenting with confidence. Examples are including maintaining good posture, making eye contact, and using hand gesture to emphasize key points. Overall, improving presentation skills can be learned and building confidence while delivering presentation. By emphasizing the importance of preparation, clear messaging, and non-verbal communication, it will so much provide the framework for delivering impactful and effective presentation. I think moving on, we can go next. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Ito, and together with Aqilla, we will both explain about Chapter 7, Graphics with Leadership Edge. Graphic has a big impact on the success of our oral and written communication. As what the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words said, the audience will likely understand what we're trying to say by visualizing our message. It is called reinforce the message. If the message is about sales going down, then we can put a picture of a line graph going down. Graphics can also be used as a roadmap to the structure of presentation. It is important to be kept as simple as ever. It is a method to establish an agenda or discussion topic. Graphics can also be helped to illustrate relationships and concepts visually. Take a look at this example. We can clearly see the difference because concept graphics are useful in clarifying ideas and in creating a mental picture for the audience. Graphics can also be used to support assertions in both quantitative and also qualitative methods. The last important concept is to maintain and enhance interest. It is important to have a visually appealing presentation because it will make the audience to keep their eyes on it. There are several tips to consider when using colors. The first one is to keep them simple and select the colors that work well together. Second is to ensure the colors are easy to see when placed against each other. The third one is to check the text color to make sure it contrasts the background color. And the last one, the fourth, is to make sure the colors support the desired image and message. Moving on to the last topic is about conveying clear and effective message. Several tips that might help you is the first one, to keep the chart simple but meaningful. The second one is to include only one message per chart or slide. And the last one, the third, is to make sure the chart title captures the so what. Okay, for the last tip, it is possible that the audience can hardly understand the chart. So it is our job to put suitable titles to explain the data on the chart. The next explanation will be continued by Aqilla.
Alright, thank you Ito for the introduction. So for the next part, I'm going to explain the subchapter of chapter 6, which is selecting and designing effective data charts. So for data charts to add to our presentation or documents, we first need to clarify our message, and then we can determine the types and content of the graph that will add to, support, or explain that message best. Edward Taft from the book provides the following best practice guidelines for creating data charts, such as to: first, induce the viewers to think about the substance rather than a methodology, graphic designs, the technology of graphic production, or something else. Second, avoid distorting what the data have to say. Third, make large data set coherence. Fourth, serve a reasonably clear purpose, description, exploration, tabulation, or decoration. Now, the goal of the graph should be to aid the audience in understanding the data and our central message. Selecting the best type of graph for the type of information that we want to convey, and then following a basic design principles for graph will help us communicate our message more effectively. For example, pie graph is best for comparing proportions and relative amounts of components, and works well with non-specialist or executive audiences. Bar or column graph is best for conveying absolute value data, relatives, size, or close comparisons, and emphasizes differences, and it works well with most audiences. Line graph is best for demonstrating trends or interactions between variables, good for showing movement over time, and is useful for most audience. Now that we have understood how to choose the correct type of graph to use for your presentation, now it's time to discuss how to use the graph correctly. Which leads us to the next subchapter, a few pointers on including graphic in presentation. Any graphics in a presentation should enhance the presentation, not dominate it, as the poorly designed slides are responsible for much of the criticism and the same for PowerPoint. As you can see in the picture next to me, this slide has too much chart junk or clutter. The 3D effect and the legend make it difficult to read, the skyline in the background only detracts from the message, and the X's are unlabeled. As a result, the slide is more distracting than useful in conveying a message. Creating an original template will mean that the presentation will stand out, as we probably would want, and it shows that we are willing to take the time to personalize the presentation, not simply pulling something off the shelf that others could see. However, by doing so, it takes time and calls on design skills not all of us have. So, using one of the standard templates available in different programs and on the web as a base may be the best way to go, since we can personalize any of them to make them more our own. Another problem we might encounter when making our own graph is when we insert graphs or objects from other programs, Excel in particular. Keep in mind that when we're making and inserting our graph to the presentation, we want it to look as if they were part of the presentation, not pulled in at the last minute from another program without concern for consistency in the formatting and clarity of the information being conveyed. Another thing we frequently use for presentation are animations. Animation is a great tool, however, it is easily overused and misused. Therefore, there are a few guidelines to help presenters use animation effectively. First, use animation only to control the delivery of the message or help the audience with the message. Second, do not overuse animation or edit just because it is possible. Third, when animation is used to bring in text or outer shapes, the text and shapes should appear or come in from the most logical direction and the shortest distance. Fourth, avoid using too many different animation techniques in one presentation. And finally, make sure to test the animation by running the presentation in slide view from beginning to end. As with all the design guidelines discussed in this chapter, we should use animation to add to or help us deliver our message, not just because we can. Finally, we should make graphics work for us, not against us, using graphic to support and even enhance our messages. The presenter should be the focus of the presentation. The slides are there to aid us, not replace us. Used correctly, graphics and other presentation visuals can provide a leadership edge.